Homework. It's something millions of students around the world have to deal with, and it may be considered a staple of public education. But should it really? As high school students, we have school for over 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. Do the math, that's over 30 hours a week. Do we really need more work to do at home? Hey, maybe we do. Maybe homework is actually helpful. I'm not here to rant about homework. I'm here to take an honest look into both sides of this debate to try and answer the question, is homework necessary? Now, there are a lot of things I could say about homework and why I don't think we really need it, but just to keep things simple, let's break it down and go step by step. The first point I want to talk about is how at a certain point, homework doesn't even help the student enough to justify the work they're doing. Let me just get this out of the way real quick. I am not opposed to homework of any kind. Like, if there's some work you needed to do in class and you didn't have time to finish it, finish it up at home, that's okay. Little stuff like that is fine. The homework I have a problem with is when there are specific assignments that are designated to be done at home, not in class. They are specifically intended to be done on your own time, not in school. But that's just how I see it. Let's take a look at what other people think. One great resource I found to help support my case is this article by Alfie Cohn titled Down with Homework. In this article, Cohn mentions something similar to what I just said about the different kinds of homework, and we seem to agree on that. But I want to look at one line specifically that says, in high school, some studies do find a relationship between homework and test scores, but it tends to be small. More important, there's no reason to think that higher achievement is caused by the homework. This perfectly supports my point that homework isn't really that helpful. Test scores do not improve drastically, and even then, the test scores that do improve shouldn't be thought of as they did better because they did the homework. Now, there's also an argument to be made that homework can help with other non-academic skills, such as patience or discipline. But in this same article, Cohn mentions, no study has ever confirmed the widely accepted assumption that homework yields non-academic benefits, self-discipline, independence, perseverance, or better time management skills for students of any age. The idea that homework builds character or improves study skills is basically a myth. As far as we know, there's no long-term growth to be had from doing homework. So if it doesn't really help academically, and it doesn't help non-academically, what does it help? And even just for me personally as a student, it's frustrating when I have extra homework to do after I just spent all day in class, and I think sometimes that can reflect poorly on the teachers or the people making the assignments or running the classes, because it may show poor time management skills. If they can't fit all of their work into the allotted time that they have, I don't think it's fair to give the students extra work to do on their own time. Let me put it this way. When factoring time into your schedule, you should not include another person's time as yours. And this leads pretty perfectly into my next point, that regardless of academic or non-academic benefits, homework can just be genuinely unfair to the students. Found this other article, Are You Down With or Done With Homework by Lori Huff? I'm not sure how to say that, I'm sorry. But one line I wanted to look at is, parents in particular have been saying that the amount of time children spend in school, especially with after-school programs, combined with the amount of homework given as early as kindergarten, is leaving students with little time to run around, eat dinner with their families, or even get enough sleep. This sums up my thoughts pretty well. I think that with such a packed schedule, especially as you move up into higher grades like high school, homework is just kind of a hassle to fit into your schedule. Let me give you this example. High school student gets up at 7 in the morning and gets ready and goes to school, where they stay until just after 2. They go to work from, let's say, 3 to 9, and then they go home and have to take care of their own stuff, like eating dinner, taking a shower, any other typical daily obligations that they may have. And by the time all of that is done, it's almost 11. If this person gets up at 7 in the morning for school, then a healthy 8 hours of sleep means they have to go to bed at 11. And if you've been playing along at home, you might realize, we're already at 11, so we don't have any more time. You may also notice that there was no time for homework in that day. Not even to mention, in high school, you have several different classes who may or may not each assign different homework assignments. So all of that put together can be very tolling on a student, especially if they don't have the time to fit that into their day. Now, of course, this is just a hypothetical example, but it is realistic. This could very well happen. And in those cases, how is it fair that the 7 hours they spent at school wasn't enough? So now they need to sacrifice on things as simple as their own sleep. The same article goes on to talk about how people think homework can build independence and responsibility, or it makes sense to help the students learn better, or it will develop a good work ethic. But then this article brings up a point that I didn't even think about. In reference to the alleged benefits I just mentioned, the article quotes another writer or teacher or parent or something, saying, the problem with this thinking, writes Vatterott, is that homework becomes a way to practice being a worker, which begs the question, she writes, is our job as educators to produce learners or workers? Like I said before, I hadn't even thought of this, but it's a pretty solid point that I have actually heard mentioned before in one way or another. Historically, school has existed to prepare people for being an adult and specifically work like mill work, assembly line type work. So tell me why now, 100 years later, we have so many different opportunities for success, so many different ways to be successful, but our education system has remained fundamentally the same. And even another reason homework can be unfair to students is that, well, it can be unfair between students. In Joseph Lathan's article, Is Homework Necessary? Education Inequity and Its Impact on Students, Lathan mentions how homework can highlight inequities between students, from things like not having the right equipment to do your work or not having as much time as the other students, so you fall behind. Assuming students will have certain free time here or there is an unfair and unreliable way to plan a schedule. The same article also says, after around 4 hours of homework per week, the additional time invested in homework has a negligible impact on performance. So even if some homework is helpful, at a certain point, it's just not anymore. All of this is to say that we really don't need homework. It's not very helpful, it can treat students unfairly, and it's just not worth it.
But Logan, what's the point of this information? Why are you telling me these things?
I'm glad you asked. My goal for this video, in a perfect world, would be for an individual with the authority to change how homework is run to see it and take note from it and agree with me and maybe try and rework how homework is done. But if that can't happen, at the very least, a very broad audience, I want to get this out to as many students as possible so they'll hopefully agree with me and they may carry on this idea in their own lives. I want to give people all the information they need to hopefully agree with me and hop on the no more homework idea. That is all. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something from this, and if not, I hope it was at least entertaining. And I also hope that maybe, just maybe, I was able to convince you that we don't need homework. But anyway, thanks again for watching. God bless.